Shocking truth. Why Jesus meditated daily at 3 a.m. Discover the life-changing secret now. As the sun slipped away, bathing the ancient hills in an eerie twilight glow, the town of Nazareth held its breath. A hushed whisper spread like wildfire. Every soul was buzzing about the inexplicable habit of one Jesus of Nazareth. At the witching hour, every night, he would slip out into the cool darkness, leaving behind a world that would never grasp the enormity of his secret. What drove him to that rugged, secluded hillside? Had he uncovered something terrifying in the shadows of the night? Or was he seeking whispers of a divine truth hidden from all mankind? It was said he would sit cross-legged, beneath the snaking branches of an olive tree, with the restless night wrapping around him like a cloak. Each whisper of the wind seemed to carry messages too sacred for human ears. His followers would speculate wildly: was he in communion with spirits? Or perhaps wrestling with devils, battling fears and doubts that gnawed at his very being? Night after night, they witnessed his ritual and felt the shiver of the unknown crawl up their spines. Shadows danced like flickering candles at dusk, and the stars themselves seemed to dim in solemnity while he delved into a realm most dared not explore. And yet every dawn, as the sun clawed its way above the horizon, announcing a new day, Jesus emerged somehow changed. The warmth of the light kissed his skin, but it could not erase the eerie aura that filled him. Onlookers caught glimpses of the fervor in his eyes, a piercing intensity that felt both inviting and terrifying. What had he learned in those deep, silent hours? "Oh, there's got to be something more," the townspeople murmured, eyes wide with speculation and awe. What did he see there beneath the vast, starry expanse? What life-altering knowledge did he uncover in the tapestry of night? The townsfolk were gripped with an insatiable need to understand. And that hunger would soon turn dangerous. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As whispers escalated, tension thickened the air. What if someone followed him one night? What if they dared to approach? The possibility throbbed in the air like a drumbeat of dread. And soon, when the clock struck 3 once more, the people of Nazareth would witness an unfolding mystery that could alter the very fabric of their understanding, or perhaps unleash chaos they had never imagined. A storm was brewing in the quiet of the night, and the answer lay just waiting to be uncovered. What did Jesus truly seek under the rapture of the stars? Would they find the answers or face something far more daunting lurking in the shadows? The night wrapped Nazareth in its heavy cloak once again, the townsfolk clinging to their secrets and fears. Eyes flickered toward the hillside as the clock struck 3. A tense stillness enveloped the sleepy town, the world spinning on an axis of uncertainty. Would this be the night someone dared to disrupt Jesus' sacred ritual? Meanwhile, in the shade of the ancient olive tree, Jesus knelt with a resolute calmness that sent ripples of both inspiration and dread through those who saw him. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply, drawing the cool night air into his lungs. Some said he could feel the pulse of the earth beneath him. As sounds of crickets filled the air, another noise crept in, a rustling among the bushes. From behind the thick shrubbery, a figure emerged. It was small, shrouded in darkness, creeping closer. Breath caught in the silence. Townsfolk traded harsh whispers. They couldn't believe somebody had actually followed him. Who's that? A voice trembled from the shadows, barely audible. Fear clung like fog, thickening the air so that a chill ran down the spine. It was Abner, a restless spirit fueled by jealousy and curiosity. He'd been the one scoffing at the whisperers, yet here he was, throwing caution to the wind. Fueled by a need to find the truth, he stepped closer, heart pounding. His friends had dared him to investigate, and the thrill of discovery had lured him down this path. Suddenly, Jesus opened his eyes, piercing through the night. The glow of a distant star caught the intensity of his gaze, revealing the depth of his understanding. Abner froze, caught in an unsettling mix of awe and fear. Jesus seemed to know he was there, yet he remained silent, almost waiting for Abner to unveil his purpose. "Why do you do this?" Abner asked, taking a single hesitant step. "What secrets do you seek under the stars?" Jesus simply smiled, an enigmatic curl of his lips that stirred a storm in Abner's chest. The air hung thick with questions, unspoken fears mingling with the promise of enlightenment. "It's not what I seek, but what I find," he replied. His voice was calm, yet reverberated with a truth that seemed to stretch beyond the borders of their small world. As the words echoed amid the trees, a weight settled over Abner. He felt the pressing darkness of secrets he had chosen to ignore. "But what are you finding, really?" His voice trembled, almost breaking. Was he ready for the answer? The moment seemed to stretch into eternity, as stars blinked above like watchful eyes, and an unseen power vibrated in the air surrounding them. Nearby townsfolk held their breath, utterly enthralled. Abner felt a pull toward Jesus, a magnetic force linking them. He stepped forward again, the truth rearward in his mind. "Show me," he begged, fear and determination colliding within him. Then, as if responding to Abner's plea, the ground trembled slightly beneath their feet. A low moan filled the night, an eerie sound that seemed to resonate from the very depths of the earth. Abner's heart raced, a primal instinct igniting within him. He wasn't just witnessing something extraordinary. He was on the precipice of the unfathomable. In that flash of a moment, Jesus stood tall, his presence illuminated by the energy swirling around him. "Can you handle what lies within the shadows?" he challenged, and the echoes of his question lingered, heavy with the implications of their choices. Suddenly, the ground shook again, and a blinding flash lit the sky, splitting the night like a beacon through the darkness. What had they awakened? What would they discover in the face of such power? The townsfolk exchanged terrified glances, whispers of a fear much greater than they had anticipated. The air crackled with an electrifying intensity, and the answer loomed perilously close. Would Abner uncover the truth he sought, or would he fall victim to forces beyond his comprehension? The night held its breath, and so did all of Nazareth. As the blinding light faded, the air buzzed with anticipation. Abner felt as if he had crossed over into a realm untouched by time, a world pulsating with something ancient and powerful. The townsfolk shivered, pressed together like terrified sheep as they beheld the scene unfolding before them. "What now?" Abner managed to whisper, his voice barely cutting through the thick tension. Jesus glanced down at him, his expression unwavering, almost serene amidst the chaos. "Faith," Jesus replied, and the simplicity of the word reverberated like a drumbeat in Abner's chest. Faith, Abner, is more than a belief. It's the willingness to confront what you dread. Abner's gut twisted. He had charged into this moment, desperate for knowledge, now straddling the line between enlightenment and terror. But what does that mean for us right now? The question burst forth, raw and urgent. The ground beneath them wobbled again, more ferociously this time, a warning rumble that twisted the air and sent branches of the olive tree trembling. Panic surged through the townsfolk. A few stumbled backward, their faces pale with fear, while others clutched each other, eyes wide and glimmering with a mixture of awe and dread. "Do you feel it?" Jesus asked, his tone shifting, growing intense. "The earth awakens," he gestured emphatically, and the energy around them seemed to pulse in response. "What does it mean?" Abner pleaded. "Why is the earth awaking?" His heart pounded, echoing in rhythm with the tremors around them. Suddenly, a deep crack echoed through the night as the ground erupted not far from the foot of the hill. A rift split the soil, and a cloud of dust spiraled into the air, filling the night with a pungent odor of earth and something metallic. The townsfolk gasped, their eyes fixated on the crack that split the earth beneath them. Abner staggered backward, caught between fascination and horror. He needed answers, but every fiber of his being screamed to run. "Speak, Lord!" Someone cried out, voice trembling. "What do you desire?" The question hung in the air, weighed down by fear and uncertainty. Jesus turned his gaze to the rift, the atmosphere electric with tension. "What I have found within the shadows is both a gift and a curse," he declared, his voice booming against the backdrop of gasping breaths. "To uncover truth is to bear the burden of that truth." As Abner watched, something began to rise from the opening, a shadowy figure, long and wavering, as if taking shape from the very darkness that prevailed in the cracks of their hearts. The townsfolk gasped collectively, their faces painted with fear and intrigue. "It's coming," Abner murmured, feeling sweat trickle down his back. "What is it?" "It is fear manifested," Jesus answered, eyes reflecting the growing darkness. "The shadows of your doubts. Your secrets. Can you face that which you hold dear?" Abner's heart sank, caught in a whirlwind of horror mixed with fascination. They had awakened something from deep within, an embodiment of all they feared. He felt the urge to flee, but Jesus' steady gaze anchored him in place. "You can't run from this," he heard Jesus say softly, yet firmly. "You must confront it." Thundering hearts combined with the rising echoes of an age-old voice, stillness seeped into the air. The shadow rippled closer, pulsing with an unearthly glow that grew brighter. "Abner," a voice called from the crowd, filled with a mix of desperation and clarity. "Are you ready to unearth the truth?" Abner's mind raced. What lay ahead? Would he choose to face the growing darkness or flee back to the tidy lies he once told himself? As the shadow moved closer, a question burned deep within him. Would uncovering the truth set them free, or was this just the beginning of their worst nightmares? The night still held its breath, and so did Abner. The weight of his next choice loomed larger than the crack that split the earth beneath him. Abner stood frozen, his heart racing as the shadow advanced, curling toward him like smoke in the wind. The townsfolk gasped in unison, their whispers escalating into cries of terror. Each breath felt heavy, congested with the weight of their collective fear. "Jesus," Abner shouted, his voice trembling. "What do we do?" Jesus remained steadfast, his gaze locked on the creeping darkness. "You will face it, Abner. Every thread of uncertainty in your heart will unravel." As the shadow elongated, twisting itself into agonized shapes, Abner sensed it pulling at his very soul. Memories surged around him, old insecurities, painful choices, the faces of those he failed. I can't confront this," he shouted, backing away instinctively. "You must." Jesus bound his words with ferocity. "Fear holds no power over us unless we allow it." The townsfolk watched, captivated yet terrified, as if torn between two worlds, the familiar one that lay behind them and the raw abyss before them. Vibrations surged through the ground beneath their feet as the shadow shrieked in sound that filled the air with an echo of distress. "What do you see?" someone cried out from the crowd. "What do you see in that darkness?" Abner swallowed hard, trying to focus despite the panic swirling in his mind. I see things I've hidden," he finally admitted. "Regrets, fears. It's like my past is trying to swallow me whole." "That's the beginning of the revelation," Jesus encouraged, stepping forward, almost defiantly against the onslaught of shadows. "Embrace it, Abner. In that darkness may lie your strength." The shadow recoiled, veiling itself in a whirl of smoke, then pulling closer again. Abner clenched his fists, wrestling with the urge to scream and run. Yet a flicker of something deeper flickered within him, a spark of defiance. He had wanted answers. Perhaps this revelation was part of the price. "I refuse to let you control me," he yelled, the words roaring through the chaos of his mind. The shadow paused, momentarily taken aback. Abner felt a surge of energy course through him, a warmth igniting in the pit of his stomach. The townsfolk saw a flicker of light. Some gasped, drawn closer, while others hesitated, the atmosphere thickening with suspense. "What are you doing?" someone shouted, a hint of disbelief lacing their words. "I'm letting go," Abner declared. With each breath, he felt old chains breaking, crumbling under the weight of his resolve. "I will not hide. Come what may, I will face you." The shadow quivered, its form shifting violently, as if resisting the open challenge. Abner stood firm, heart pounding in the midst of the impending storm. Suddenly, the figure surged forward, enveloping him in a whirl of dark tendrils. Abner gasped, his world flipping upside down, and he was catapulted into a whirlwind of his own thoughts and fears. Memories flooded him, faces, voices, and overwhelming guilt surged around him with a force he hadn't anticipated. Then, a whisper emerged amidst the chaos. "What do you desire?" "Freedom," he cried, the word bursting from him like lightning. As if responding to his call, the shadow wavered, slowly revealing flickers of light trapped within the murk, a vision of moments lost, hearts broken, but also full of hope and love. The air crackled as the transformation began, illumination radiating from each piercing glimmer released from its sinister grasp. The townspeople gasped in unison, the energy around them revitalizing. "Look," someone shouted. "It's changing." But just as hope began to fill the air, a new rift opened nearby, an ominous crack splitting the earth, larger, darker, and more daunting than the first. A chilling laughter echoed from its depths, reverberating with the promise of evils yet to come. Abner's heart sank. "What now? There is more?" Jesus turned to him, eyes blazing with fire. "This is merely the beginning, Abner. Prepare yourself." With that, the air thickened with dread once again, and all eyes fixated on the second rift, waiting for the truth to emerge from the depths of what they had just begun to confront. The rift's chilling laughter echoed again, louder this time, sending shivers through Abner's spine. He instinctively stepped back, not quite believing the darkness could manifest something even more horrifying. The townsfolk stood frozen, eyes wide, as if trapped in a dream they desperately wanted to wake up from. "What is that?" someone whispered, breaking the spell of silence. "I don't know," Abner replied, his voice barely a whisper. "But I fear it's something we haven't faced yet." "Focus, Abner," Jesus urged, his tone cutting through the air like a sharp knife. "This is a call to action. The darkness is a reflection of your fears and the fears of the town. It is here to test you, to divide us if we let it." Abner nodded slowly, the weight of Jesus' words sinking in. He felt the warmth of the light he had ignited earlier still flickering within him. But this was different. This was a shadow born not from his own vulnerabilities but an encroaching abyss that seemed to thrive on the collective fear of the townspeople. From the gaping rift, shapes began to emerge. They slithered like smoke yet moved with intention, dragging themselves from the depths. A parade of twisted forms that echoed the town's worst nightmares. Murmurs erupted from the crowd, people whispering about lost loved ones and unforgotten deeds, names hanging heavy in the air. "What do we do now?" Abner asked, his heart racing once more. "Watch and learn," Jesus replied, his eyes narrowing on the figures. "Identifying what they are is the first step. Each form symbolizes a fear, a wound that needs healing. They can't touch you unless you let them." Abner felt his resolve falter. Memories flashed in his mind, the grief of losing his father, the shame of past mistakes, the fear of never being enough. With every flicker of shadow, his chest tightened. "Don't give in," an elderly woman in the crowd cried, as if sensing his internal struggle. "Face them as you did before." "Right," Abner said, a tremor barely masking the courage behind his voice. He took a deep breath, grounding himself. "I will not hide. I will confront what I fear." With the townspeople behind him, Abner took a step toward the rift. The shapes drew closer, pulsating with a dark energy, but he felt the light within him flaring stronger. "Show me your faces," he yelled, fueled by desperation. "Let me see the truth of what you are." The twisted shadows seemed to recoil at his challenge. Bright beams of light shot down from the earlier glow, illuminating the shapes, unveiling their forms, a mix of familiar faces tied to pain and sorrow, each exuding a sense of longing, regret, and unresolved animosity. "What, how?" Abner gasped, shock coursing through him. "These are people I know." "Precisely," Jesus said, stepping closer. "Emotions give these shadows life. Look closely, what are they asking from you?" Tension gripped Abner as memories of lost opportunities and broken promises surged. Faces flashed: his father, his childhood friend, each demanding attention he never gave. The guilt felt like chains weighing him down. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the air, and the ground trembled even further. The townsfolk broke their gaze from the specters and looked instinctively at the source of the sound. A different sort of fear washed over them, thick as fog. "We must act," Jesus boomed, his voice booming like thunder in their ears. "Stay together. Only in unity can we conquer this." As Abner stood at the precipice of moving forward, he realized they were running out of time. The rift grew wider, and the cry echoed again, louder, filled with desperation. "Abner!" Someone called his name, pulling him from his thoughts. "What do we do?" The question hung in the air, fraught with urgency. Abner knew the answer, yet the weight of it left him breathless. Could he harness the strength of those he had lost? Could they truly stand together against this looming despair? The laughter from the rift intensified, mocking him, as terror flooded through the crowd. Decision time, Abner thought. It's now or never. But just as he prepared to bring the townspeople closer, the shadows surged forward, wild and untamed. Abner's heart raced. The question thundered within him. Would they trust him to lead? Would they be strong enough to confront what loomed from the rift? Abner took a step forward, ready to face the shadows that threatened to consume them all. "Can you fight for this?" he declared, raising his voice. "Can you face the darkness with me?" A wave of wind blew through them, heavy with anticipation as the shadows twitched, ready for the battle to begin. Yet, in that fragile moment, something cracked within the reality of the rift, a chilling whisper suddenly breaking through. "You think this battle will save you, but I foresee another challenge coming." As the realization settled, the crowd gasped anew, doomed to question what was truly ahead. What more awaited them from the depths? The ground trembled beneath Abner's feet, and the shadows writhed hungrily, drawn to the energy swirling around him. Panic seeped into the townspeople's expressions, twisting fear and uncertainty into anxious whispers. The laughter from the rift intensified, a sinister symphony mocking their vulnerability. "Stay together," Jesus shouted, pushing through the tense air, his own determination alight in the overwhelming darkness. The glowing figures of the past lingered at the edges of the gathering, their faces caught in a mask of longing, grief, and unheeded calls for help. "Listen," Abner cried, trying to pierce the rising tide of despair. "We can't let fear tear us apart. They're not here to hurt us. They're here to remind us." Suddenly, an immense shadow against the rift surged forward, separating from its brethren a lumbering figure, immense and menacing, draped in darkness. It towered over the crowd, its eyes like coal, empty yet filled with the weight of their unfulfilled hopes. "This one," Abner breathed, his heart pounding. "This one knows our worst failures. Remember," Jesus urged, his hands stretched out toward the rolling mass. "Each shadow thrives on what you keep hidden. Face it." The towering figure let out a roar that twisted through the air like thunder. The townsfolk shuddered, clinging to each other, uncertainty gripping their hearts. "I can't," someone cried, backing away from the looming shadow, torn between fear and the urge to flee. Abner felt a surge of anger at this cowardice. "We are stronger than this. Together we can overcome what haunts us." With that, he stepped forward, closer to the apparition. It was as if an invisible cord drew him, ensnaring him in a mire of forgotten regret. Memories cascaded in vivid strokes. The day he lost his father, the moment he failed to save his friend. Raw pain constricted his chest, but intertwining with that was a flicker of resilience. "Face your darkness," he shouted again, his voice echoing across the field. "These shadows feed off our pain. We must lift each other." Then, a flicker of illumination emanated from the townsfolk, curling around Abner like a protective shield. One by one, they stepped forward, their fears flooding back into memory, but alongside it came a stubborn surge of courage. I forgive myself," a woman cried out, her voice trembling but resolute. "For the things I have done, I forgive myself." Another voice joined. "I am not ashamed. Nor am I." The chorus of declarations ricocheted through the crowd, empowering them. Confessions poured forth like rain from parched earth, each uttered truth serving to unravel the shadowous grip that as the collective courage grew. The colossal figure began to waver, its form flickering like a candle threatened by wind. Abner felt the pull of the light within him swell, intertwining with the resolve radiating from the gathered souls. "Push against it," he urged. "We are the light. We choose to face the truth." With a last deafening roar, the shadow lunged forward. But instead of terrifying them, it became trapped in an eruption of courage. A radiant burst that swept through the townsfolk, a tidal wave of emotion that sent shockwaves through the rift as Abner stood at the center of this uprising. The shadows twisted and howled in a cacophony of desperation. But then, just as victory seemed within reach, a deeper echo rung from the rift. "Foolish mortals," it bellowed. "This is but the beginning." The earth shook violently beneath them, dislodging rocks and making the crowd stagger. Abner's heart sank. What more did they have to face? The rift began to shift and pulse, almost alive with a terrifying fervor, as new shapes began to form within the chaos. "Stand strong," Jesus shouted, reaching toward Abner. "If we do not face this head-on, we will lose more than we can imagine." Abner clenched his fists. Would they find the strength to confront this even darker force that lay ahead? Together, he murmured, sensing the looming dread, "We must rise again." And just as he prepared to rally everyone once more, something shifted in the air, a new energy, rising like smoke, promising even greater trials to come. What twisted truths would they have to confront next? The shadows surged forward again, their tendrils stretching out like grasping hands, hungry for any semblance of despair that flickered in the townspeople's eyes. Abner felt the air thicken as the rift pulsated, the laughter morphing into a cacophony of moans and whispers. Doubt began to creep in, unwelcome yet insistent, curling around his mind like mist. "Stay strong," he shouted, trying to anchor himself amid the chaos. The townsfolk squirmed, their eyes wide with fear. Jesus, his fierce presence unwavering, stepped closer to Abner. "Listen to the truth," Jesus shouted, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. "These shadows are reflections of our past. They cannot harm us if we no longer allow them to control us." Abner nodded, but the weight of dread pressed heavily on his chest. Huddled together, the townspeople needed something more than courage. They needed hope, a tangible spark to push back against the encroaching darkness. Suddenly, a blinding light flickered behind him. Abner turned to see a figure emerging from the rift, veiled in a luminescent aura. It was a man, his features bright and familiar. Abner squinted, realization slashing through the fog of his fear. "Father," Abner's voice was barely a whisper. "Son," the figure replied, his voice booming yet tender. "Do not yield to fear. We are bound together, and I am here to remind you of your power." The shadow stretched back, recoiling from the brilliance that surrounded Abner's father. The townspeople gasped, eyes wide with disbelief. The figure moved confidently to the front, raising his arms like a lighthouse calling its ships home. "Remember the love. Remember the light. All that has been lost we can reclaim if we unify our strength," he boomed. Abner felt a rush of warmth seep into his bones. It was a peaceful certainty radiating from his father that peeled away the layers of worry he had cocooned himself in. He could see it. The others were beginning to draw inspiration, their shoulders straightening. One by one, they stepped forward, drawn like moths to a flame, whispering their own truths, fueled by the memory of love and loss. A woman by the front clutched a photograph of her deceased child, tears streaming down her face. "I miss you, but I will not allow despair to take me." "Together," someone yelled from the back, the voice rising like a battle cry. "We will not be broken." It was electric. The crowd erupted in declarations of love, loss, and redemption. The shadows writhed, losing their grip as courage cascaded through the gathering like wildfire. Then the rift throbbed ominously, the jubilant energy stirring something far deeper. Another pulse shot through the air, and darkness coiled tightly around them, relentless and consuming. A chilling voice emerged, slithering into their ears. You think you've found light? How naive. More truths await, truths you've buried. What truths? Abner shouted, his heart racing. We will face anything together. The shadows thickened, swirling into a shape with horrid familiarity. A haunting figure from each of their pasts began to take form, faces of regret and torment morphing into monstrous visages. A rush of horror gripped the townsfolk, and despair threatened to sneak back in. But Abner could feel the resolve gathering like a storm. Stand firm, Jesus urged, his eyes blazing with defiance. They are but echoes. Our voices can drown them out. Abner swallowed hard. The air crackled with tension, and he knew they couldn't just let these new horrors wash over them. We need to confront them. What they bring will only hold power if we allow it. The darkness closed in, the figures rising from the ground, howling of the past. What forced the shadows to rise again? What truths would they be exposed to next? He could feel the fear so near, yet so far. Could they find the light in the weight of these new unearthly shadows? The shadows roared, their voices chaotic as if they were a chorus of the damned, each whisper echoing the darkest secrets of the townsfolk. Abner's heart raced, veins thick with adrenaline. As the monstrous figures from their past loomed large, their faces twisted in agony and malice. Each appearance sent chills down his spine. This isn't real, shouted Abner, his voice fierce and defiant, trying to rally the crowd. They can't hurt us unless we let them. But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. What if these fears were more than just illusions? What if they were truths dressed in shadows, lingering fears that held the keys to their souls? Abner. A voice broke through the din. Sharp and urgent, it was the woman with the photograph. Her eyes glistened with tears, an unsettling mixture of determination and terror. What if they're right? What if we can't escape what we've done? No, Jesus roared, cutting through the self-doubt like a blade. These are the burdens we've carried but can release. Let us confront them together. Do not let what was define what we are. The energy within the crowd shifted. They were unsure, teetering on the edge of despair. But the truth of Jesus' words ignited something, a spark of solidarity. Abner felt it too, warmth pooling in his chest as he absorbed the weight of his father's legacy mixed with the strength from his community. But the figures advanced, shadows twisting towards the light, hunger palpable. Abner steeled himself, recalling his own hauntings, each regret clawing at him, seeking to paralyze him with guilt. His mother's voice echoed, always nagging him, always disappointed. How would he face that part of himself now? Look, Jesus pointed, his expression fierce. That is not who you are. Those figures are an amalgamation of our failures, yes, but also lessons that have shaped us. Abner took a shaky breath, looking at his own old shadows, the mistakes, the lost opportunities, and he began moving. He stepped forward, each footfall deliberate, heart pounding like a drum in his ears. He could almost feel the shadows retreating, their bitterness repelled by the light of acknowledgement. We face our past together, Abner shouted, raising his fists in defiance. I refuse to hide behind what's lost. I am not defined by my scars, nor will I tether myself to my failures. As he spoke, others began to move, shuffling forward, unease tangling with newfound strength. The woman with the photograph stepped alongside him, her chin raised defiantly. I will not let a moment of weakness determine my future. Her words ignited those standing nearby, the crowd's collective murmuring rising into a chorus, echoes of reclamation piercing the air. But the monstrous shadows writhed and roared, more agitated as their hold on the townsfolk weakened. The cacophony of their cries echoed loudly, filling the air with a deep sense of frayed desperation. They are lies, they hissed. Leave them untouched. Stand with us, the townspeople shouted, their voices blending into one powerful heart. For a moment, the shadows faltered, swept away by the overwhelming force of unity. But then, a piercing shriek emanated from the rift, a clash of chaos and fear. A deep, guttural growl swirled around them, the ground vibrating beneath their feet. Phase 2 begins now, The chilling voice slithered out, each word soaked in venom. Prepare for truths darker than before. Abner felt ice grip his heart. What would it take to silence these phantoms once and for all? Would they be forced to expose the very core of their fears? As the shadows swarmed closer, tendrils spiraling like the claws of a nightmare, Abner clenched his fists tighter, ready to challenge whatever hell awaited them. Could the townsfolk confront these deeper truths? Or would they be consumed in the very darkness they sought to escape? The air thickened, charged with palpable dread. The shadows swirled like a living entity, hungry to engulf them all. Abner cast a glance around, meeting the eyes of his neighbors, once strangers, now bound by shared fears. Their faces were pale, mouths set tight, all processing the threat looming before them. Focus, Abner shouted, urgency pulsing in his voice. Remember why we are here. We confront together. But just as the morale surged, the ground beneath them groaned. A tremor rippled through the crowd, and the shadows laughed a dark, mocking sound that cut through the air like a knife. Your unity is nothing, they jeered, shifting shapes to echo the darkest deeds of the townsfolk. Figures became clearer, distorted reflections of regrets. A man with a blank stare broken by choices he couldn't undo. A mother weeping for her lost child, shadows cloaking her sorrow. Do you see? The voice snarled from the rift, each syllable dripping with sinister glee. Your truths are your undoing. Abner swallowed hard. No, we decide who we are. He raised his chin defiantly, blending his voice with the chorus of his people. Together, they cried, and the sound reverberated between the flickering lights. In tandem, they took a step forward. Shadows shrank back, the monstrous forms faltering. Abner could feel the weight of the past trying to pull him down, but he refused to yield. What was I accept it, but it will not dictate my tomorrow. The energy surged, igniting a fire within the townsfolk. He felt it, the warmth of their collective will, flames licking at the shadows, illuminating the darkest corners of their minds. With renewed vigor, they advanced. Each person, empowered with the courage to face their monsters, echoed their truths. I made mistakes, shouted an elderly woman, her voice defiant. But I'm still here. I lost my way, a man exclaimed, fists clenched at his sides. But I choose a new path. As the declarations echoed, the shadows writhed and screamed, their forms twisting uncomfortably as if they could feel the impact of the weighty truths being hurled at them. Abner could see their clarity, their power, and he fought the urge to retreat. Push forward, Jesus bellowed, eyes fierce. This is our time. We will rise above. Abner's heart tripled its pace. They were gaining ground, but the shadows, now desperate, swirled faster, their forms darkening and expanding. Fools! Roared the collective voice from the rift. The deeper truth is still to come. Suddenly, a powerful gust surged through the gathering, snatching at clothes, ripping through thoughts, a howling whirlwind that threatened to tear apart their resolve. Abner struggled to stay upright, grasping the arm of the woman with the photograph. Her eyes widened in terror. It knows our fears, she gasped, her voice nearly drowned out by the whirlwind. From the shadows erupted tendrils, lashing out like living whips, grasping for any weakening spirit. Abner felt one brush against his neck. It burned, igniting a flash of memories. Don't give in, he hollered, grounding himself. Remember why we're fighting. But as the shadows pushed harder, screams erupted through the crowd, doubt entering with every spiraling flash of darkness. One by one, faces shifted, resolve splintered. We won, survive this, someone cried, panic tightening the air. Abner looked into their eyes, desperation building inside him. We are not just fighting for ourselves. We fight for each other, for all of us. The words hung in the air. Would they grasp this last thread of hope? As every ounce of will hung heavily in the balance, the shadows writhed, furious and desperate. And then, a voice, a whisper threaded through the chaos. What if you are not worth saving? A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, the weight of the inquiry landing like a stone. Could they face the truth of their worth? Or would the suffocating darkness claim them, leaving only echoing shadows of despair in its wake? As the tumult swirled around them, Abner felt the weight of that question hang heavy in the air. It clawed at his heart, turning his insides to ice. Could he confront that brutal truth? He scanned the crowd, seeing the fear reflected in their eyes. "You are worth saving. We are worth saving." His voice rang out, fierce and unwavering. "We can't allow this darkness to define our worth." The shadows hesitated, momentarily drawn back by the fire in his words. A flicker of courage ignited in the townsfolk, like sparks landing on dry pine. One by one, they stepped forward, emboldened by Abner's passion. "Tell them," a woman cried, her trembling hands steadying as she faced the shadows. "I refuse to let grief drown me. I will no longer be defined by my failures," shouted a man, eyes blazing with resolve. Their voices soared higher, each declaration building into a crescendo that reverberated through the air. The shadows twisted, an ominous response to their defiance. They shrieked, frustrated by the rising tide of resilience. "Face the truth if you dare," boomed the darkness, a cacophony of disbelief echoing through the air. "You think mere words can alter your fate?" Abner breathed in deep, grounding himself in the moment. "Yes, we are flawed. Yes, we have shadows. But we also have light." He felt the warmth of unity encircling him, a collective energy swirling between them. "Let that light shine," Jesus called out, his presence illuminating the shadows, white hot against the dark. "This is your moment. The past cannot hold you back unless you let it." Together, the townspeople yelled, voices intertwining in a powerful refrain. "We choose to rise." With that declaration, the energy shifted palpably around them. Abner locked eyes with the townsfolk, their faces a mix of fear and determination. They raised their heads, standing shoulder to shoulder, united against the encroaching shadows. As if in response, the shadows recoiled, twisting and shrieking, the forms blurring as the powerful light of their unity encroached. "You can't. You won't," they howled, their forms flickering in instability. "Do not give in," Jesus urged, stepping forward with a fierce glint in his eye. "Only truth can heal. Stand firm." The ground shook beneath them, tremors traveling through the earth, a warning that they were on the brink of breaking free. "We will not be defined by our darkness," Abner shouted, his voice carrying through the chaos like a lighthouse amidst a storm. "We embrace our truth. We embrace each other." The shadows twisted violently in response, fury fueling their desperate struggle. But in the faces of those around him, he saw something shift. Kindled by a realization, they stepped even closer together, warmth radiating from their unity, forming a shield against the unyielding darkness. Then, from within the conflux of light and shadow, Abner saw something change. Wisps of true memories began to break through the oppressive shroud. Among the shadows rose glimpses of laughter, love, and hope, the beautiful moments of their lives now intertwined with the painful. "This power cannot exist without our fear," Abner thought, realizing the shadows fed on their pain, multiplying the fear that wrapped around their hearts. In that moment of clarity, he raised his hands, palms facing outward, a beacon of defiance. "Face the past, honor your scars. They make us whole." As the light intensified, born of honesty and acceptance, the shadows reacted, swirling faster, their forms growing more chaotic, desperate. The cacophony of their screams pierced the night air, thrumming with terror. "Do not yield," Jesus shouted, a blazing passion igniting staff in his hand, invigorating the air. The townsfolk roared in response, hearts igniting with fervor. They stood determined, facing their truths, bent not on fleeing, but on embracing every aspect of their authenticity. The cries of their fears recoiled, losing substance in the face of their collective light. Suddenly, the shadows crumbled, dissipating like smoke against an unwavering flame. Gasps fluttered around, as the light surged forth, an avalanche of resolve reverberating through the crowd. "Together we have vanquished them," Jesus proclaimed, his voice ringing clear and triumphant, a bell tolling against despair. Abner felt the ground beneath him solidify, vibrate in solidarity as the shadows melted away, leaving only light a brightness that washed over their wounds that had long festered in the dark. They embraced. Tears mingled with laughter, a mixture of defeat and triumph crashing together in waves of raw emotion. Laughter rang louder than sorrow, as bonds were reforged under the moonlight cascading above. That night, in Nazareth, the townsfolk discovered something profound. They learned that the shadows would always lurk, but their fears held no power. It was their growth, their unity, their willingness to confront fear head-on that would keep the darkness at bay. Abner smiled through the tears. They had transformed the night of reckoning into a holy rebirth, where fear began to relinquish its grip, replaced by a nurturing sense of belonging. As dawn broke on the horizon, painting the world in glorious hues of pink and gold, the weight of the night faded into nothingness. They stood as one, the sun rising behind them a testament to their victory over the shadows. A sense of peace enveloped them, as if the very air vibrated with an unspoken longing. Renewed hope blossomed like flowers through concrete. It was a new beginning, and together they would carve their path forward, stronger, braver. Are you ready to create something beautiful? Jesus asked, eyes alight with possibility. Abner nodded, heart swelling with gratitude. They began to speak of futures untamed, dreams awaiting them, a tapestry of life woven from the threads of their shared truths as they turned to forge ahead into the dawn. The whispers of the night transformed into resolute promises of love and unity. Together, they would never have to face fear alone again. And as the light dazzled over Nazareth, their laughter echoed through the valleys crisp and pure, a beacon for the world to see. This was their legacy, woven from courage and connection. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let us know you're with us. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this amazing conclusion. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this. Your support means everything. Let them discover the power of unity.